All right, we are on chapter 7 now of Ancient Rome. We just finished learning about Cleopatra and a little bit about Julius Caesar. Now we're on to chapter 7. Title is spoiler alert, Julius Caesar dies. So I guess we'll learn how that happens. More conquests. Julius Caesar continued to conquer. When he left Egypt, he led his army to Asia Minor, the home of modern-day Turkey. Turkey is a country, it's also a food, but in this thing it's saying modern-day Turkey is a country, not meat or bird. There, Caesar once again showed he was a great general. Caesar sent a message to the Senate about his latest conquest. It was only 3 Latin words. I don't know Latin, so let's see. Vini, vidi, vici. Vini, vidi, vici. Say that, it's kind of fun. Vini, vidi, vici. The words mean, I came, I saw, I conquered. Next, Caesar went to North Africa and won another victory. Then he went to Spain and defeated armies led by Pompey's sons. Finally, he returned to Rome. There, he became dictator for life. Caesar was now the most powerful man in the world. Caesar changed the Roman government. He lowered taxes, appointed new senators, and replaced several greedy governors in the provinces. He gave land to Roman soldiers and food to the poor. Caesar's enemies in the Senate did not like these changes. They thought Caesar was acting like a king and had too much power. Caesar invited Cleopatra to Rome to celebrate his victories. He gave her gifts and placed a statue of her in a temple. Caesar's enemies worried that Caesar would marry Cleopatra and move the government to Alexandria. They also disliked the way Caesar had ended the Republic and set himself up as a dictator for life. They decided to assassinate Caesar. Assassinate right here is an important word that we need to know for our quiz in our vocabulary box. It says assassinate means to kill a ruler or member of the government. So it'd mean that if you are going to assassinate someone, they're planning to kill somebody who's really high up, who's important. So that's what they had decided to do to Caesar, because they thought that he had too much power. All right, the assassination. The Romans called March 15th the Ides of March. On that day in 44 BCE, several of Caesar's enemies entered the Senate with knives hidden under their togas. Togas were like a robe that they wore back then, so it's what they called their clothes, a toga. When Caesar entered the Senate, his enemies stabbed him. One of the attackers was Brutus, a man Caesar had forgiven after the Civil War. Caesar thought Brutus was his friend. Surprised that Brutus had joined his enemies, Caesar's last words were, Et tu, Brute. This means, you too, Brutus? So, super sad that happened. It's going to be important for us to know the people that eventually killed Caesar. So, it was the people of the Senate and his friend Brutus. That included his friend Brutus. Remember, the Senate is the group of people that are in charge of Rome. So the Senate and his friend Brutus were the people that eventually assassinated him, who killed him. So I would write that down if I were you. All right, Mark Antony and Octavian. After Caesar died, another civil war began. On one side were Brutus and the others who supported the killing of Caesar. On the other side were Caesar's supporters, the people that were mad that Caesar got killed because they liked him. In 42 BCE, Caesar's friends won the war. The leaders of this group were Mark Antony and Octavian. Mark Antony was a famous general. He wore a thick cape that looked like a lion's skin. He told his soldiers that he was related to the legendary hero Hercules. Hercules had killed a mighty lion and worn its skin as a cape. Antony's soldiers respected his courage in battle, but Antony liked to brag. He could also be careless. Mark Antony shared control of the government with Caesar's adopted son, Octavian. Octavian called himself the young Caesar. He was 18 years old when Caesar died. Octavian was the opposite of Antony. He was proper in his dress and manner. He was also careful about his decisions. Antony and Octavian each took part of the empire to command. Octavian's part was in the west, near Spain. Antony's part was in the east, near Egypt. So they kind of split up this whole empire of Rome, and each was in charge of a different part. Antony and Cleopatra. Antony wanted to conquer more lands, but he needed money for his army. He asked Cleopatra to exchange the riches of Egypt for his protection. Cleopatra agreed. She invited Antony to stay with her in Egypt. The two fell in love. All right, this is going to be important for us to know. The person that helped Mark Antony was Cleopatra. They had a deal. She helped him out. So in your notes, I would write Cleopatra helped Mark Antony. All right, then Antony's wife died. Though he was free to marry Cleopatra, Antony would not. He knew that many Romans did not trust Cleopatra. She was too clever, too rich, and too powerful. She was also a foreigner, meaning she wasn't from their country. She was from somewhere else. Antony left Cleopatra, returned to Rome, and married Octavian's sister, Octavia. He knew that important Romans would approve of this marriage. He also believed the marriage would help him keep the peace with Octavian. Still, Antony returned to the east 3 years later. He went back to his wars of conquest and to Cleopatra. Things went badly for Antony. He lost half his army and conquered nothing. The army needed food, clothing, and weapons. Octavia wanted to help her husband. Remember, now we have Octavian and Octavia. Octavia is the girl that married Mark Antony. It's easy to mix them up. So she wanted to help her husband. She loaded ships with supplies and sailed to the east. Despite this help, Antony ordered Octavia back to Rome. He made it clear that he preferred Cleopatra to his normal Roman wife. Octavian, now we're talking about the other guy. So remember, Mark Antony and Octavian are the two guys that are in charge. So Octavian, now we're talking about him. He was angry. Antony had insulted his sister. Octavian spoke out against Antony and Cleopatra. He said they were planning to take control of the entire Roman world. Octavian prepared for war. As always, he was careful. He asked Agrippa, Rome's most famous naval commander, to help. Octavian attacked first. Agrippa trapped Antony and Cleopatra and forced them to fight at sea. They were no match for Agrippa. After their defeat in the Battle of Actium, Antony and Cleopatra escaped to Egypt. The end came quickly. Antony's army surrendered. Antony killed himself. Cleopatra knew that Octavian would bring her back to Rome in chains. She dressed in her most beautiful costume and held a deadly snake to her skin. When Octavian's guards found her, Cleopatra appeared to be asleep, but she was dead. So, a little bit dark at the end there. A very interesting way for Cleopatra to go by holding a snake to her skin. Things obviously were really, really, really different all those thousands of years ago. All right, so hopefully you can remember the things that we talked about today. It was a super interesting chapter, and you can go ahead and take that 3-question quiz. And Good luck.